Man, Vandy has crushed it in the portal, but honestly, there's still some work to do. Let's find out. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Shout out to you everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can get and bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. So today, we're going to examine what happened with Vandy Hoops as they took their first SEC loss at the hands of Mississippi State. And really, how do you fix it moving forward? And we'll talk to I got Joey Dwyer. I want to bring him in and see what he thinks of this Hoops team and what the problems are and what the good things is and stuff like that. So that's a note for later on. But as the portal madness calms down for a little bit and you're starting to kind of get an idea of what your spring roster is going to look like and you're in winter conditioning and all that stuff, Vandy's done quite well. But, man, honestly, they still have a lot of work to do. And, you know, I want to emphasize again that they've done very, very well. They've got 12 guys in the portal. We talked a little bit about what that means and what that is. I mean, they bring in, 4 offensive linemen with the hopes of a 5th. They bring in, edge guy Keanu Coate, safety CJ Hurd. You bring in another corner, which you could certainly add a couple more of those 2 positions. You bring in a couple of good wide receivers that look to be. I mean, none of these guys, at least the receivers, neither of these guys really kind of stood out at their programs and you're like, oh man, that's an alpha guy, but that's kind of what you get in the portal, honestly. But you've got a lot of great pieces. A lot of these guys look to figure in as instant starters or at worst guys that get a lot of playing time and rotation and in reserve roles. So, I mean, just honestly, if you're a Vandy fan and you're looking at just the progression of this portal and what's really happened, you're looking at it going, okay, well, this Vandy team has pulled almost a 180 because, they finally realized some things about not only the university, but for the city. They've realized that they can go out and use the city to their advantage. Use the fact that Nashville is rapidly growing. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the Southeast. Understanding that the music business and the music industry can play a factor in recruiting. Understand that this is a place that people want to be. Understand that this team and this culture that's driven not from the top by Clark Lee, but reinforced heavily by Diego Pavia and others in the program that have kind of caught on. CJ Taylor caught on. I mean, he's obviously departing now as he's out of eligibility, but you get some contagious personalities, and you had some contagious personalities last year, but they were more toxic. This year, everyone just kind of found that igniting point and just kind of believed in each other. And then that was kind of all brought together. And so I think that's kind of the first step of creating success in the transfer portal and making yourself a desirable destination. And that's part of what happened here. The new strength and conditioning program, I think as much as it did for strength and conditioning and speed and agility and nutrition and everything that comes with physical training, I think it did just as much for culture building and for team building and for the competitive and mental and emotional strength for this team. I think it did just as much for that as it did for the other stuff. And the mental side of the training, everything from the neck up, came just as important as the physical stuff. And I think it led to kind of what you were able to do, and it allowed you to pull through, and it allowed these guys to kind of trust each other, right? And they got that competitive training. They've got they got put in situations to where they had to rely on each other. And then they were able to pick each other up. They were able to build each other up after being torn down by some of these things that they did, and not tear down as in like this coach was just beating them to a pulp, emotionally and mentally and yelling at them and degrading them. It's these adverse situations they get put in training, which is very common. The military does it. Every strength program in America does it, where you get put in these adverse situations and you're forced and you're put to the test. Your resolve, your resiliency, your competitive toughness is put to the test. And you find out just what your team is like. Are you yelling at each other? Are you working against each other? Are you blaming? Are you pointing fingers? If any of that's happening, the task doesn't work. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. The more frustrated you get, the more blame that gets placed elsewhere, the worse it gets. So what Vandy was able to do is they had, and this builds leaders. And so eventually you have to kind of just figure it out. And the longer it takes you to figure out, the more relapse you're going to have, the more times you're going to slip back into that natural feeling of it's his fault and start yelling at people versus you just do it from the jump and here we go. And we're off and running, and it's a great situation, and it's a great situation from a leadership perspective. So that's what happened. So I say all that to say that they've created quite the culture, and they've created quite the environment for recruits to want to join. All right. They've created that winning culture. They've created that idea of, okay, we can actually do this at Vandy. If I come here, it's not just a waste of my time. And so you're looking at you're looking at being able to get, a bunch of guys out of the portal that can come in and be instant starters and help boost your team versus you're getting developmental scraps that you hope that you can coach up and say, okay, we're going to be competitive. Like you're not really saying that anymore at Vanderbilt. Like you're looking at a 9-win season as the expectation at Vanderbilt next year with the talent you're bringing in and with the talent you're likely going to bring in. So I say all of that to say that the table is set for the work that they still need to do. They've done an admirable job. 12 guys in the portal. They've got just about everyone they've targeted, and they've gotten some pretty good, talented guys, some high school recruits that were something coming out of high school. Now, for whatever reason, they haven't gotten the opportunity, but a lot of times in the portal, that's what you get. You get guys that are looking for opportunities to play, or they go into these stacked programs because, hey, the logo on the side of the helmet's pretty cool. But in reality, these kids don't think about coming out of high school. They don't think about, hey, I want to go somewhere that I can play. I want to go somewhere that truly wants me, that's truly going to give me an opportunity. I don't care if it's, quote, a lesser program. I'm going to go somewhere where they like me, where I fit, and where I'm going to play. And eventually, with this transfer portal the way it is, they end up there. So that's a really good positive thing. So that being said, here's what Vandy still needs. They've done a phenomenal job. They still need another offensive lineman, which they're on the hook right now for one. They could use even probably another interior guy or another tackle or somebody that can come in and just kind of see where they fit. But right now, Pete is out there. He's being courted by all of these programs, but they got him on the hook, and you're going to see just how good their recruiting is and just how we stack up against other programs. But, Josiah Pete is somebody that's still just out there and hoping that you can get him and see what you can do there. But to me, what stands out offensively right now, I think is running back. And the type of running back that you need is somebody that has a ton of speed, right? And it's somebody that I think has to be able to add something in that element to what you're doing at Vanderbilt and what you're doing with this offense, because this offense is so predicated on explosive runs. It is so run oriented that you need somebody that can hit the home run. Okay. And Scotty Humphrey, just jumped in from Montana State. This is going to be an interesting one to kind of see where he lands. He's I think he's somebody coming from the Pacific Northwest that, you get a guy in the right situation, you get a good runner with some good skills. He runs angry, he runs physical. He kind of seeks that out. He kind of fits that running style. I don't know about as far as a home run threat. I think he's kind of he strikes me as one of those guys that he needs something clean to really do that. But again, I'm really excited about the prospect of adding kind of that home run threat back. I'm a big fan of Cedric Alexander, and I think he can do a lot of good things. Hitting home runs, hitting that 70-yard run, that's what Vandy's lacking. You have a pass catcher in Newberry. You have kind of an all-around grinder, can get you chunk yardage, but not much more than that. And Cedric Alexander, who's a good number one back. He's done a phenomenal job. But I just think with Vandy's philosophy, you need kind of a committee approach, and that's just kind of where we're at. Travion Cooley is a name. Star Thomas, he has a connection. I think that's a legitimate. He was at Duke, and he could be the latest addition to the Vandy State Aggie Door Club. But some of those guys are intriguing, and I'm curious to kind of see where they go with that, because I think they can still add some people. I don't know that they can't enroll in classes. They would have to be summer guys. And, if you're going to add a summer guy, why not add Star Thomas? Why not get him in the mix? He knows the system. He just got to get in there and do it. So it'll be, keep your eyes peeled there for that. Running back, I think, is something that, Vanderbilt could absolutely get down with. And of course the trenches, again, Shazai Pete, and defensive line is something that they just need. They're pretty solid there, but in the SEC, you just need the depth, right? An edge player, too, you can never have too many pass rushers. South Carolina taught us that. Never have too many pass rushers. Capers, Coat, you need a third. You need a third guy from the portal, and then, your fourth guy, you can develop that from within your roster, from within your high school signees. But you need a third guy that can come in and be a viable guy. Rotational stuff, and injuries happen, and it's a long season, all that stuff. So, transfer portal stuff, Vandy, like I said, Vandy's kicking butt in the portal. But they just need to keep doing it. They need to keep adding, and that's kind of where we're at. We'll talk, what's also interesting? Hoops. So we'll talk about that next. Hey, Rocket Money, right? Cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Have you had Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I promise you. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even know I was paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is also a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower bills so that you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 billion in canceled subscriptions. Just send that over to me. I can find something to do with that. Saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. So for me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. I've already saved a ton. It's been great. And the goals feature, get out of here with that. I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting. I can hit my goals. I can save money. It's a home run, man. So go cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Again, you can cancel those unwanted subscriptions. You can reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. So go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right. Also, this is that time of year. You've been hunched over, putting together toys over Christmas break, taking down Christmas decorations. A lot of you are battling the cold right now. And everyone in the Southeast is about to get pounded with some snow. People around the country have been getting pounded with snow. It's just that time of year. So before the snow comes in, why don't you make your way to Joint Chiropractic? 900 locations nationwide. Go get yourself cracked. You'll feel good. You'll float right on out of there, and it'll make you feel good. Dr. Nolan at the Bellevue location. If you live in Bellevue, that's the one to go to. He's great. He will take care of you. And man, you got nothing to worry about. So go visit one of their 900 locations nationwide. They've got great membership packages. They do great things there. So make sure you go and visit. I need to visit again. I haven't been in a while, but you guys know what I've been dealing with. So there's that. Joint Chiropractic. Let's get it. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. If you need a second listen, shout out to you everydayers. Thank you for making all this happen. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the place for you. Okay? Locked On SEC is the place for you. Chris Gordy, phenomenal job. Squad show. I'm not going to be on it this week, but usually it's an unbelievably popular show. So make sure you get that done. Make sure you listen to that as well. Everyone from the SEC network comes together. The Locked On SEC network of shows all come together. And we just have fun, man. We just have fun. That's the best way to put it. We have fun, and it's great. So make sure you partake in that. Make sure you have fun with that. So, talking hoops, man. What happened? Vandy had so much promise. 13-1 coming in against Mississippi State, who I think Vandy discovered very quickly why they're the number 14 team in the country, and they're going to do well. They're going to do well in the tournament. They are set up, stylistically for success. They are a phenomenal basketball team, man. They do very little poorly, right? And I was thoroughly impressed watching that game with Mississippi State. And usually when you see a game like that where Mississippi State gets out in these big leads, and you're like, okay, well, Vandy was never really in it score-wise because Mississippi State just kept pushing that needle. They kept hitting big shots. They kept getting big blocks. But the thing I was impressed with was this. Vandy, the scrap and the resiliency and the fight within Vandy was incredible. Okay. And I was thinking about this. I was like, well, it is a loss, and losses aren't good. But then again, all losses aren't created equally. All wins aren't created equally. Okay. There is good wins, bad wins, horrific wins, good losses, bad losses, horrific losses. Right. And you saw the spectrum of bad and horrific losses with the Bryce Drew era and the Jerry Stackhouse era. You had some very few wins, and if you did have a win, it was typically not a great win. It was just one of those you kind of just got lucky that the team had an off night. But I saw something different in this Vandy team. Okay, I saw something that I didn't see at all last year. I saw a team that was obviously overmatched on the floor size-wise. I thought Mississippi State presented a bigger team. I thought Mississippi State was playing their style of basketball. It's just overwhelming. And I saw a team that got a little bit overwhelmed by a better team. This was more of how good Mississippi State was, and Mississippi State did a really good job of capitalizing on the smallest of mistakes. They do a good job of making small mistakes into big ones and not making a ton of mistakes themselves. Now they did. They turned the ball over probably more than they wanted to, and that's not good for them. But for Vandy, it was 76-64 final, which is close in score. And Melendez had 19 points. AJ Hogard had 18 points again. He was the leading scorer again. But Vandy was able to turn Mississippi State over 11 times. If without looking at Mississippi State's season stats, I'd be willing to bet that 11 turnovers is probably on the higher end of what they usually do. What killed Vandy, honestly, the only atrocious thing about Vanderbilt in last night's game was the 3-point shooting. It was horrific. 19%. Awful from 3-point land. Better on the free throws, 75%. They were 66% in the conference opener against LSU. From the field, they were 35%. So not overall great shooting team. They couldn't really make things consistently unless they could get to the rim in transition. They hit a few big shots down the stretch or for a stretch there in the second half that kept it kind of close. But for the most part, it just wasn't working, right? They got 30 points in the paint. They had 4 fast break points, which is they usually have more than that. And then it's just one of those scenarios where Mississippi State they're just good, man. They're just good. They hit big shots. They move the ball around. They play good defense, right? And that's just what they do, man. For Vanderbilt, man, for Mark Byington, they've got to, I don't know. They just struggled shooting the ball. And I'll kind of tell you just how they can fix that. And it might be very, very simple. But they played, I thought they played brilliantly. Effort-wise, I thought they fought. I thought they kept themselves. They did everything they could to keep themselves in the game. They just couldn't quite get it done. We'll continue this next. All right, welcome back. Wrapping up the show here, Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Thank you. Shout out to the everydayers. Well, let's keep pushing towards 1,000. Because that's the goal, man. That's what we want. That's how we want to roll. Need to get to 1,000. And I'm pretty stoked that you guys are on this journey with me. So talking basketball, man, this Vandy team is the concern is this, okay? They're really, really good. For a team that just met each other in June, they're really good. They are good in transition. They're good at creating turnovers. They're good at just kind of playing an overwhelming style of basketball in and of itself. But what concerns me is this, okay? They have a lack of size compared to other teams in the conference. I think teams that have bigger presences in the paint will overwhelm them, and they will struggle against that. They don't do well right now. I don't think they communicate overly well on the defensive side of the floor. I think if a team has good ball movement, they will get open shots a lot against Vanderbilt. And if they can hit, and if a team goes ice, and unless the team goes ice cold, if you can move the ball around, you're probably gonna win. But what concerns me the most, and those things are very easily fixable. You get some reps, you communicate a little bit better. These guys get to know each other even better. Those things can be fixed, right? You can fix that. The size thing, I don't know that you can really fix that right now, but you can fix that by getting some bigger people. But you've got to do other things to kind of put pressure on them in that regard. But what concerns me the most is this: Vanderbilt doesn't have any shooters. They were below average shooting just in general, but they were abysmal from 3-point land. And that's something that if I'm an opposing coach, right, I'm looking at that. Okay. I'm looking at that and saying, why don't we just park the bus, to borrow a soccer term? Like if I'm Missouri, why don't I just park the bus? Make them shoot their way into a victory. Force Vandy to shoot. Mid-range and out. Force them to shoot. If they get hot, great. They won't be hot for long. Force them to shoot. And that's the game plan. And until Vandy gets good at shooting, they're going to struggle in these type games. They're going to struggle when the team packs the box. They're going to struggle when teams don't let them run the floor and get in transition all the time, and then they don't let them stretch them out. They don't let them move the ball around. If they park the bus in the lane, what is Vandy going to do? They better hit their free throws and they better hit their three-pointers because that's all they got. That's all they're going to have. These teams are going to take a lot away from them. So if they don't figure that stuff out, that's the way it's got to be. A.J. Hoggard had a phenomenal night, but he's got to have help. He's got to have help. He's got to have somebody else that's going to pitch in and score because, you get Missouri and South Carolina, who it's kind of an easy stretch here, but on the 18th, you get Tennessee. And then you follow that with Alabama, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Florida. Holy cow. Not a good stretch. A terrible stretch as far as difficulty. That's really going to test your mettle there. But, for statistic-wise, you get Hoggard with 18. You get Huffman with 12. And you get Tyler Nickel with 10. Not much else after that. Chris Mannon, scoreless. Devin McLaughlin, supposed to be getting points in the paint, 6 points. Tyler Tanner, who's still trying to figure things out, 9 points. A banged-up Jason Edwards, get him healthy, 0 points. MJ Collins was hopefully going to be, an impact player with Jason Edwards beat up, 2 points. Jalen Carey, again, supposed to get some good buckets off rebounds and moving around and getting the ball in the paint, 7 points. Right? So you've got to get some of these contributors in scoring. You've got to get Jason Edwards healthy. You got to get him scoring. He only played 11 minutes. He was 0 for 8 from the field. 0 for 5. He took 5 bad three-point shots, bricked them all. Right? So you've got to have guys that can put the ball, that can pour the ball through the net. You've got to, you have Mississippi State, who has 19 for Melendez. Cameron Matthews with 16. Claudel Harris with 13. Then you have 8 and 9. So all your starters were pretty solid there, distributing the scoring. Your bench didn't really get you a ton, but you didn't really need them. But your bench probably outweighs Vandy's bench even then, 76-64. But this is a scenario where this is a scenario where you just gotta. It's just going to take more reps. That's just. I know that seems like a simple answer, and you're probably looking for me to say, well, if they move this ball here, they set a screen here, and they run this play, and it's not like football, man. It's not like football where it's a coordinated effort, and you have to have 11 guys doing their job at the same time. It's basketball. It's a little simpler than that in that regard. It's going to take reps. It's going to take these guys. It's going to be finding the right combination of lineups. It's going to be these guys just playing basketball together and understanding, okay, well, he's going to move here and I'm going to hit him there. And, this guy does this well, and you need to develop a sharpshooter. And if you had a sharpshooter that everybody was scared about, maybe they wouldn't be able to pack the box, right? It's just like football. If Diego Pavia can learn how to develop as a passer and be a legit threat as a passer, teams can't zero in on him running the ball. So it kind of takes the element. It kind of takes a little bit of control away from the defense, right? It kind of takes the role away from that. And you've got to have guys that can close out. You've got to have guys that can crush the paint. And with the size advantage, you almost have to just foul and make them make free throws. You have to keep them out of the lane. You have to play probably a more physical style of basketball, a swarming style of basketball, which they do to their credit. But sometimes against bigger teams, they can almost kind of get bullied a little bit down low, and the other team can kind of create some advantageous situations for themselves. But shooting. You're just going to have to shoot your way out of this, man. It's going to be, getting up threes in practice and making sure you can find yourself in a rhythm, because you're going to have open looks. Your teams can't defend the 3-point line and the paint at the same time, right? They just can't. They can't do it. If you move the ball well enough, you're going to create some wide open looks. Got to be able to take advantage of that. You shot pretty well from 3-point land against LSU. You'll win, right? But it can't be this like you make some and then the next day you're atrocious. Like you can't have these big peaks and valleys with your shooting. You have to be on a fairly consistent basis where your cold nights are really just kind of cool, and your hot nights, you can get hot a little bit, but like too high, too low, you just want to be kind of right there, even keel in the middle, because it makes you more dynamic, because you're already good at getting to the rim. But if you can be dynamic, it just makes you a little bit better. So up next again is Missouri. That game is happening on Saturday. And this will be a test for Vandy to see kind of just, can they bounce back? Can they become better shooting? They play at 2:30. And then they're at Missouri, and then they're home against South Carolina on the 15th. And then a tough Saturday game, Tuesday slate of Tennessee, and then at Alabama. So they better learn how to shoot before then. But anyway, that's all I got. We'll get you into the weekend on our next episode, and we'll get you previewed with Missouri, kind of see what they look like. Hopefully with Joey Dwyer. I'm working on that. We'll get him soon. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but we'll see. But until then, we'll see you next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Peace. Anchor down.